Okay. Yes, madam.
Hope I am visible.
Yes, madam. Yes.
My voice is audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Good morning to all the participants. My special morning to the team of Bhimavaram Institute of Engineering and Technology, Bhimavaram. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Suresh, principal of the BITE, and the HOD, Mr. Manohar, of EC department, and also Mr. Rajesh of CSE department, head CSE department, for approaching me and asking for being a resource person for the FTP that is organized by BITE, Bhimavaram. Thank you once again for giving me this opportunity. On behalf of myself, I'd like to appreciate all the participants who have taken valid time to spend for their career development and coming for this FDP to know about what is mobile ad hoc networks, especially in the terms of reliability. So with these few words, I thank once again the management of BITE for giving me this opportunity. Thank you. So should I start the session or?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll be talking on mobile ad hoc networks and the reliability perspectives of mobile ad hoc networks. So before going into detailed concept of mobile ad hoc network, first I'll give you an idea about what is reliability, why we need reliability, and then slowly I'll be moving into the mobile ad hoc networks, and with some case studies I'll be going through. So I'll just share my PPT so that it will be visible to everybody. So everyone are able to see the PPT?
Yes, ma'am. We can see, ma'am.
Okay. So today we'll be starting with it's a faculty development program on mobile ad hoc networks and reliability perspective. I am Dr. N. Padmavati, Professor and Head of Department of EC at Vishnu Institute of Technology, which is an autonomous institute. So this program is going to be for 3 days, starting from today, tomorrow, and day after tomorrow. So first, I'll just look into what is the reliability, giving you a small introduction to reliability, then advancing into the wireless mobile networks, and how do we represent the networks, what are all the models needed to represent those networks, and what is MANET, what are its important features, what are the challenges in the MANETs, and why actually we need reliable MANETs, and what are the possible failures in MANETs, and then taking you through network reliability analysis. Then I have 2 case studies, one related, one with capacity and without capacity. So this is what the idea of today's session. So to start with, I'll introduce into reliability. So before going into the formal definition of what is reliability, I would like to know how many of you, most of you would have heard of the terms reliability and as well as quality. So what is reliability and what is quality? Are they both interrelated or they are going to be different? That is what we need to look into. So first, to see about what is reliability. So as a simple definition, I can say that reliability is nothing but the probability of a non-failure over time. Or in another way, I can say that how successfully a system is going to perform its operation. So if I'm, for example, we almost, I think we are about 100 people or more than 100 people, we are meeting together today. All this could happen because we are using the Zoom software and we are entirely dependent on this software. If this app has not worked, probably we all wouldn't have been connected today. So that means The app is the main source of our event today. If this app is not functioning, the reliability is zero. If it is functioning, we are 100 people connected together. It means that our purpose has been solved today for this particular day of FDP. That is what is reliability is meant. So what I mean to say is reliability, the probability that a component or a system will perform the required function for a given period of time when used under stated operating conditions. So that means I am dividing the reliability into three parts. So here I have written it as, to be more specific, an observable description of failure needed to be established. That means when a system is trying to fail, I need to find out what distribution it is following. Whether it is following a Weibull distribution or it's following an exponential distribution. If it is an exponential distribution, if it is an increasing one or a decreasing one, or is it following a Poisson distribution, we need to define, we need to, based upon the data, failure data we get, we need to identify what type of distribution, or we need to give a description to the type of distribution that is happening. And second point is, unit of time need to be identified. That means how long your system is to work. So I'll take the same example, Zoom. So if you actually go into the basic model of the Zoom, maybe 2 or 3 people can get connected for 40 minutes. If I want 100 people to get connected, I should have a good bandwidth and I should have more time. If I say this 100 people should be connected for 2 hours, that means my purpose of giving the FDP for 2 hours should be satisfied. That means each and every product which we develop should have a particular duration of time. It should perform for the entire duration of the time. That is what I mean as unit of time needed to be identified. So unit of time, I can say it is the operating time, or it can be to as long as we travel, or it can be as batch, products developed as batches. So that we define it as the unit time. And next we have system should be observed over normal performance. So normal performance means, so suppose if I have a, I can say we have an, say let me assume we have an induction stove. So induction stove to be operated under normal conditions, say at room temperature of 35 degrees, let me assume, I'm just giving, or let me say it's a television. It should be operating at 35 degree room temperature at a specific operating voltages. Several design parameters will be there when you are designing a television. So if your television is not going to perform, the main purpose of television is what? We need to broadcast the video and the audio signals. So we need to get the pictures, visual pictures, the moving pictures. If the TV doesn't give all this operational outputs, then the system is not performing. So whenever we need to develop a system, we need to keep in mind that if there is a failure, what is going to be the distribution of the failure? How long is the system going to be operating? Under what conditions it's going to be operating? So these are the 3 important parameters which is going to define your reliability. And how are we going to calculate reliability? So here we can see R of T is equal to probability that capital T is greater than or equal to small t. So here R of T represents reliability over the duration of time. So if I say if a system has to operate for 45 hours, it has to operate for 45 hours. It should not fail within 45 hours. That 45 hours is represented as small t. And capital T is going to be the duration of the time, even if it is exceeding your operating time. So if I say 45 hours is your intended design which you have done, even if your system is functioning for the 50th hour, it's well and good. But it should not fail within your design time. That is what is meant as capital T, the difference. So the probability, so this defines the success rate. R of T is equal to probability that capital T is greater than or equal to small t. And the next equation you see, it is capital F of T. This defines the cumulative density function, which is going to be the, so when I talk of reliability is always 1, or since I say it's a probability, reliability value will be between the, it will take a value between 0 to 1. So maximum value can be 1. And cumulative density function is going to be 1 minus R of t. So whatever is your R of t, you remove it from 1, you will be getting your cumulative density function. Or I can write it the other way as probability of capital T is going to be less than or equal to t. That means it is failing before your design time. If you are designed for 45 hours, if it fails before the design time, it means that we are trying to find what's the cumulative density function. And next is the f of t, small f of t. Small f of t is nothing but the p probability density function. So when you differentiate your cumulative function, we can get what is called as the probability density function of f of t. So that can be differentiated either with your capital F of t or with your R of t. So this is about a simple idea about what is reliability. Then next, when you try to plot it, so here I have given the 3 plots. The first one gives you the probability density function, cumulative density function, and the survival rate. So this probability density function generally tells us about the how the failure has been distributed or the success has been distributed. So that means you can take any type of distribution. So it could be a normal distribution, exponential, or Poisson, or any type of distribution. So each distribution has got its own equation. Based on that, you get a distribution function. And this survival function is nothing but your reliability function R of t. So initially at the start of the mission time, that means when you're starting a performance of a particular system, your reliability is always high. That's what it is 1. And with time, your reliability starts deteriorating. So it tries to go to 0. So deterioration of the reliability means that some part of your system is failing, but still you are having the performance of the system to take place. So that is the survival rate. And the reverse of survival rate is the cumulative density function. So that means initially it is 0, and you see that it's exponentially increasing, and with time it reaches to a maximum. So this is about these 3 functions. And next, coming into what are all the reliability measures. So here I have just given a few. We have MTTF, which stands for mean time to failure, and we have medium time to failure, we have mode, we have hazard rates. So mean time to failure means what could be the average time for a system to fail. So when I say average time, we take it over a duration from 0 to infinity. We are not defining what is the maximum limit within infinity. And t is the design parameter time which we have taken, and f of t is going to be the distribution of the function. So when you integrate these parameters, we get what is called as the mean time to failure, or we can say it as the expected failure. And next we have the median time to failure. When I say median, it is going to be the mid value. So that means actually we generally consider the normal distribution case. So when I say mid, it's going to be 0.5. So that's what we have. The value is always 0.5, right? And for mode, observed failure rate. So it is going to be the maximum value of your distribution function. And next we have the hazard rate, which defines the instantaneous failure at time t. So this means that your system should operate, small t represents your design lifetime which you give. If you design it for 45 hours, it should operate for 45 hours. And within 45 hours, it may fail. If it fails within 45 hours, what can be the expected next failure, instantaneous failure which can happen? That is what is t plus delta t. So this can be written as R of t. R of t is the reliability at the design time, which is 45 hours, minus R of t plus delta t, the next failure which can happen. So this difference gives you what is called as the hazard rate. So next, the main concept for reliability, whatever may be the type of system we take in, it basically follows the butt-up curve. So why we are so much interested in reliability is whatever may be the industry which we see. We have a lot of industries, like we have electronics industry, we have mechanical industries, and many other industries. developing mechanical components, electronic components, semiconductor components, whatever it is, not many industries. All industries are very much interested in reliability. Why? Because when they need to sell their product is going to be purchased by the consumers who take it. And consumers is mostly interested only on the reliability of the product and as well as the quality of the product. So that means when I say reliability, if you say that this vehicle is going to run for 30,000 kilometers, it should certainly run for 30,000 kilometers. If it doesn't run, then there is a problem somewhere in the system. So if a customer is not satisfied with the performance of the system, customer is the one who is going to promote that particular system. So if a customer is dissatisfied, he says that he says that please don't purchase it, not bothered about the industry's reputation or whatever. So each and every industry, they are very much taking care about the reliability of the component. So each component will follow this particular Bartlett curve. So when you look into the curve, you see that it has a tub-like shape. So that means you have an decreasing time, you have an increasing time, and in between you see that it's a constant time. Okay. So here, so first, initially, I am dividing the time slot into 3 different zones. The first zone you can see it is called as a decreasing failure rate. The second zone is the constant failure rate, and then you have the increasing failure rate. So most of the systems will follow this particular Bartlett concept. Okay. So initially we see it is an earlier infant mortality failure. So earlier infant mortality failure means it is nothing but in the case of dead on arrival products. That means the products which is going to be before reaching the customers would have some failures, and within weeks or within 2 or 3 weeks or within a month, a failure will occur in that particular product. So when a failure occurs in a particular product within a month or within weeks, then such type of failures you call it as the earlier infant failures or mortality failures. And coming into the constant failures, this particular constant failure, it is an useful period of the time, or you can say it is a useful life of the time. So this is the duration where the entire operation of the systems is done. If I say my system is going to, the lifetime of my television, for example, lifetime of my television is 10 years. It should sustain the operation for 10 years. So that means there should not be any failures in this particular duration of time. So that we call it as a constant failure or a random failure type, or it is a useful lifetime. And coming into the third phase, it is called as the wear out phase, which is also known as an increasing failure rate. So that means after the useful time, slowly the performance of the system is reducing. When the performance of the system reduces, it means that the components or whatever software which is being used in the system are losing its lifetime. It is wearing out of time. So that means the failure is increasing in this particular path. So when I talk of electronic systems or when I talk of software products, we see that we cannot, the useful time, I mean, initially you'll have the earlier infant mortality failure, and then you'll have the constant failure, and after that you'll have the wear out completely. Wear out goes on decreasing. At one stage the system will completely break down. But in the case of mechanical systems, due to proper maintenance, if you try to give a proper maintenance periodically, so the wear out can be reduced and the useful lifetime can be increased. So that can be done only in the case of your mechanical systems. So looking into, once again, the earlier failure is also known as the decreasing failure rate. Random failure is constant failure rate. Wear out is going to be increasing failure rate. And early failure rate, the failures, we have to investigate the failures. That means it helps in investigating the failures. That means we need to go in for improving the design of your products by making it less sensitive to errors. So that is going to be done. How are we going to do is we have several tests to do that. One is we have halt test, we have the hash test, we either have the HASA test and we have the burn-in test. Of all the four tests, burn-in test is the best suitable test for the semiconductor industry. And this is about the bathtub curve. So with time, the failure rate, first phase you have the decreasing failure rate, then a constant failure rate, and then again a increasing failure rate. Okay. So now we are slowly moving into the communication part. So advanced wireless and mobile networks. So whatever may be the networks, we are all more interested in communication. Communication should take place. It could be a wired communication or it could be a through wireless media. So actually the advance of communication started from the ARPA networks and to the latest we have MANETs. Even we have still more latest, we have MANETs and many other networks. So why I stopped with MANET is today's interest is on MANET. So we'll be discussing more on MANET. And when we look into the communication from almost over years, we see that it has been an exponential growth in the advancement of the communication systems. So what are all the different types of classifications we can see? We have mobile ad hoc networks, MANETs, we have wireless LAN, we have wireless mesh networks, wireless sensor networks, then we have wireless sensor and actuator networks, personal area networks, PAN, body area networks, vehicular ad hoc networks, delay tolerant networks, and cellular networks. So I think we all have an idea about what these networks are, and I'm not going to the details of these networks. So next, when I talk of networks, we can classify these networks into two types. One is infrastructure-based wireless networks, and another is going to be infrastructureless networks. So when I say infrastructure networks, they are connected through a base station. We need a base station or a centralized unit which passes messages and enables the connectivity between all devices. Whereas when we talk of the infrastructureless networks, we see that these networks can form their own architecture, form their own structure, and there is no specific base station or there is no centralized unit. So each and every network can act as a transmitter. So each and every node in the network can act as a trans receiver. So it can send its own messages, receive its messages, and the topology is going to be completely dynamic in nature. So these are the two major classifications of wireless networks. So when we still go for the infrastructure networks, you can call them to be a fixed networks or static networks. That means no mobility is being possible in that. And infrastructure networks are going to be dynamic and arbitrary. So dynamic means moving more flexibly, and arbitrary, the topology being formed is going to be very random in nature. How are we going to represent these networks? So generally, network representation, we have graph theory, or we have Edwards-Rennie graph model, or we call it as the ERG model. So graph theory, when I say a network, before going to graph theory, when I say network, for a communication to happen, we need one source and one receiver, right? And the source and the receiver has to be connected. We need the wireless links or the wired links. So when we say the connectivity to happen, so here in the graph theory, you can see I have given 4 different networks models. So the circles are going to represent the nodes, and the arrowed lines indicate the links. So in other cases, I am not given arrowed lines. So this is, when I say it is arrowed, it is going to be unidirectional. When there is no arrow, it's going to be bidirectional. That means both node can act as both transmitter and as well as a receiver simultaneously. Okay, and when we look into, so based upon these arrowed and non-arrowed graphs, we can say the first graph A, it represents a directed graph. The second graph represents the undirected graph. Third graph represents the sparse graph. and last represents the complete graph. When I say directed graph, so say node 1 can communicate with node 2, but 2 cannot communicate with 1. So when 2 needs to communicate with 1, it has to communicate to another node, which is going to be a intermediate node. So this is about the directed graph, and the second B is going to be the undirected graph. So any node can communicate with any node. And third one is a sparse graph. That means there is a limited connectivity between all the 5 nodes. And the last one is going to be the complete graph. That means you have full connectivity. The network is fully connected. But this particular graph theory, this is not suitable for modeling or representing MANETs. Why? Because MANETs are highly mobile in nature. Topology keeps changing. So graph theory is not suitable for representing the topology of the MANETs. And next we have one more model, which is the Edwards-Rennie graph model, which was established in 1960s. And this model is best suitable for modeling complex networks. But when we want to model the real-time networks like MANETs or VANETs, moving models, all these cannot be modeled using the Edwards-Rennie graph model. So here, if we have n nodes in a network, the total number of links depend upon the probability of the node that exists in that network. If the node status is 0, it means that it is in failed state. If the node status is 1, I'm just assuming the values. If the node status is 1, that means reliability. I'm talking of the node reliability. If it is 1, it means that it's highly, you can depend upon the node for the operation which you want to perform. So L is equal to P stands for probability, n into n minus 1 by 2. This gives the total number of links for a node with n number, for a network with n number of nodes. So these two methods, either using graph theory or Edwards-Rennie graph model, these are not suitable for MANETs, but these are best suitable. You can model any infrastructure networks using graph theory and Edwards-Rennie model. You can represent the fixed networks or infrastructure networks. The next is going to be the geometric random graph model. So when I say geometric random graph, geometric itself represents that we are going for some calculations based upon distance. When I say random, so this is best suitable for MANETs because the topology is random in nature. So based upon the randomness, you can define. So how are we going to define? So G of n comma n. So G stands for graph, n stands for number of nodes, and number of links. So you are designing a graph with n nodes with n links. Is a graph that can be obtained by placing n points, where points are nothing but the nodes, uniformly at random. So you take a uniform area, but in that particular area, you are distributing your nodes in random. So if I say unit square, that means 1 by 1 square, 1 by 1 meter square if I take. That means in 1 by 1 meter, I am placing some n nodes and connecting two nodes if and only if the distance. So here I have defined whether it's Euclidean or Manhattan. You can take any distance model. So I have just given only Euclidean or Manhattan. So connecting 2 point nodes if and only if the distance Euclidean or Manhattan is at most the radius of the node, where the distance depends on the chosen parameter. So what does this mean is when I have a node, so I can say your mobile is one node. So each mobile will have a particular transmission rate. That means it has a coverage of, let me assume it has a coverage of 3 kilometers. So beyond 3 kilometers, whatever nodes are going to be available, they're not going to be connected. Only those nodes which are within the 3 kilometers, it's going to get connected. So once it gets connected, we need to calculate what is the distance between node 1 and node 2. And based on this distance, you can go in for modeling your graphs. So as I go into the other slides, I'll be telling you how the graphs are being modeled. So this is geometric random graph model is the best suitable model for modeling MANETs. Right? And the next model is going to be the evolving graphs. graph model. So evolving graph model, what it does is, here I've given a representation, capital G is equal to SG, comma G. So SG means we are at each time slot, what is the topology? So here I have given 4 time slots, graph 1 at time T1, graph 2 at time T2, graph 3 at time T3, and graph 4 at time T4. So now at each time, look into the topologies. Here you see that the red one indicates the source node, and the star-like node indicates the sink node, and the circles, blue circles indicate your intermediate nodes, and the lines indicate your bidirectional links, right? And you have the alphabets A to F, which are the edge names, and the node names are given in numerals 1 to 6. And you can see the occurrence in some time slots. You have links occurring in some other time slots, links are not occurring. So what evolving graph model means is, you have the knowledge of individual time slot topology. Based on the individual time slot topology, what would be the entire network topology? That is what we are trying to get from the individual time slot. So when we look into the 4 time slots, you see that, so let me assume the link 1 and 3 between node 1 and node 3. The node 1 and node 3, you see that the link occurs at time slot T2 and at the time slot T4. So that's what I written it as, the occurrence of this node link at time slots. So between 1 and 3, it has occurred at time slot 2 and it has occurred at time slot 4. Similarly, when I take 3 and 4, the link has occurred at the time slot 1, time slot 2, and as well as time slot 4. So like this, you can evolve the graphs from having a knowledge of individual time slot topologies. And here, what will be the total number of configurations possible if you have n number of nodes? So for n nodes, the total configurations can be 2 to the power of n into n minus 1 by 2. So this is going to be the total number of configurations for a node with, for a network with n nodes. Okay. And next, how to model networks. So why do we need to model actually? Without any modeling, we cannot go in for the reliability calculations. So you need to model it, you need to have a particular structure so that it would be easy for us to calculate the reliability values. So to start with, the network modeling translates a physical network into a reliability network based on series of parallel component connections. For example, if I go here, so this is a topology given here. Let me assume this first one. It's a topology given. One is not connected. So remaining all are connected. So looking into this, we can say that since one is the source, it is not able to communicate with any of the nodes. It's not able to communicate with the sink. So looking into this itself, I can say that this network is a failure. This network in time 1 is a failure. And similarly, when I look into G2, so when I look into G2, source is not connected with the destination. Again, this is going to be a failure. So all the topologies which I have given over here, this is just as an example I have given here. You can see that it is a failed network. But overall, when I try to look into this evaluated network, I can see that one is connected with 6. You can have multiple paths where one is connected with 6. So this I need to represent in some form, as I said in the models. Either I need to represent it as a serial configuration or a parallel configuration or a combined series parallel combination, or I need to go into as a complex system. So whatever way I need to represent a physical network into a reliability based network. So first, let us look into what is a serial configuration. In serial configuration, let me assume I have a network with 3 nodes all connected in series. That means the output of 1 is going to be input of 2, then output of 2 is going to be input of 3. So what is the disadvantage in this particular system is if 2 is failing, the entire system fails. Or if one fails, entire system fails. So in a series system, if any one of the component or the node is going to fail, the entire system fails. So how are we going to derive the reliability? So reliability is got as RS of T. So RS stands for system reliability. RS of T is equal to product of I is equal to 1 to n RA of T. So I is going, that means you have n nodes here. So that's what this is going to be R1, R2, R3. So RA stands for the reliability of individual nodes. So when I say reliability of the individual nodes, it will take the value something between 0 to 1. Okay. So let me assume when I want to have good reliability, let me assume if I take Ri is equal to 0.9. So that means all nodes are having the value 0.9. So the total reliability of the system is going to be 0.9 into 0.9 into 0.9. So that means it will be something 0.729. So reliability of the system is going to be 0.729. So in a series system, the reliability is the system reliability is defined as the product of I is equal to 1 to n Ra of T. Now when it's come into the parallel configuration, so here I have given it for parallel configuration, all the nodes are connected in parallel with each other. So even if one of the system fails, so we need not worry, the system is going to still perform because either one is active or 3 is active. All are connected in parallel. So here how are we going to calculate the reliability? Let me assume same. If the reliability of each node is 0.9, then the system reliability we calculate as 1 minus product of 1 minus Ra of T. That means if it is 0.9, 1 minus Ra of T is going to be 0.1. So 0.1 into 0.1 into 0.1. The value, that answer is going to be subtracted from 1. That gives you what is called as the system reliability. Reliability of the parallel system. And coming into next one is going to be the combined series parallel system. Combined series parallel system is you have a system as you look into the third diagram. R1, R2, they are parallel in each other. And R2 and R3, R1, R2, let me assume this is equal to RA. After converting it, you have an RA node. RA and R3 will be parallel with R4 and R6. Before that, I'll say RA is in series with R3, R4 is in series with R6. So you need to reduce it, convert it into a simplest system as possible, and finally make use of the series configuration. The reliability calculations for series system and as well as the reliability calculations for the parallel system. These two are to be used for detecting the calculation or making the calculations for the combined series parallel system. And next, coming into the complex systems, we have various approaches. We have decomposition method, you have event enumeration method, you have minimal cuts method, and you have minimal paths method. So actually this is a very large topic. I'm just giving out the different methods which can be dealt for the complex systems. So decomposition method is if we remove a particular node, what will be the reliability? If you include that particular node, what is going to be the reliability? That is going to be, suppose we have a node with, we have a network with 5 nodes. So we need to have the best possible way of calculating your reliability. So here we go in for choosing the key element node. Choice of the key element node is very important. So when you try to remove a node, you should be able to represent a system either in a series form or in a parallel form. So when you are able to represent a system in a series form or a parallel form, you will be able to calculate. The reliability values. So the choice of the key element is very important here. If we make a wrong choice, then the evaluation, reliability calculations become difficult in decomposition method. And next is event enumeration method. Event enumeration method is, for example, we have a network with 5 nodes. For a network with 5 nodes, 5 nodes means the total maximum combinations is going to be 2 to the power of 5. So almost you'll have 32 combinations. So you need to list out all the 32 combinations. Try to find out which will be the successful event, which will be a failure event. And the average of all the successful event is going to give you the success rate of that particular network. Okay, if the number of failure events are going to be more, then the chances for that particular network to fail is going to be higher. So based upon the number of events which is going to pass or which is going to fail, your reliability of the particular event is going, particular network is going to depend upon. And next we have minimal cuts and minimal paths. So this depends upon so minimal paths. When I say, when for example, just please look into the third graph. Here we have 3 different paths. One path is R3, R1, R3, R6. Second is R2, R3, R6, R4, R6. Sorry, this should be R4, R5, and R6. Okay. So when we look into these 3 paths, all the 3 paths are same because we have 3 nodes in common. Okay, there may be network topologies where you may have minimum 2 paths and maximum 7 paths. So minimal paths, so the best path is going to be identified, and based upon that we can derive what is the reliability. Okay, so this is about the network models. And so till this I'll stop. If you have any doubts, you can get clarified. And then I'll continue the next. If anyone have any doubts, you can get clarified.
Ma'am, here all the partners are muted, ma'am.
Okay. So I'll continue, sir, because
if they have any questions, they will post the question in the chat box, ma'am.
Okay. So my voice is audible now, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Your voice is audible, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, 1 second. I will give a chance for them to ask the questions, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, sir.
I will give a chance for them to ask questions, ma'am. Please wait.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah, participants, now you can ask questions if you have any questions. You can unmute yourself and you can ask the questions.
Madam, what is the minimum cuts, madam? Minimum parts means we are calculating minimum parts.
Ma'am, one second, ma'am. Ma'am, one second. Madam,
Sir.
I hope you have received the question, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah, coming to your question, sir. Minimum cuts is done basically isolation of nodes, removal of certain nodes, and then checking into the reliability. Either you can remove the nodes towards your source or towards your destination, and then finding out the whichever minimum cut has given you the best reliability, that can be done.
Hello, madam.
Yes, madam.
Madam, in fully network, how the communication will happen, ma'am?
Which, sir? Which, madam?
You have just shown in the fully network and in topology, madam. First slide.
This first slide.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. In this last D1, how the communication will happen, ma'am? When all nodes are fully connected.
This one.
Yeah. Yeah, this one, ma'am. D1.
Your question is how, if the
Yeah, communication will happen.
technology is going to be fully connected, how it is going
Yeah.
to take place.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Based upon your multiplexing techniques.
Okay, example, ma'am.
See, example, when I say, for example, if you take your magnets itself,
Okay.
right, each one can be acting as a source and a destination. So what I
Yes.
mean to say here is basically we are interested only in the physical layer connectivity. When I talk of the
Yeah.
physical layer connectivity, I would like to say that each node is going, if there is a connectivity established, that means if I come into the region of your transmission range, then it automatically gets connected and the communication is going to take place.
Okay, if at the same time 2-3 nodes will the
Yes,
communication
all will be
happens.
communicating, then we need to take care of all the collisions, interference, etc.
Okay. Is there any further explanation? Are you going to explain, ma'am?
In detail, I'll be going when I come into magnets.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, thank
When
you.
I come into magnets, I'll be dealing in detail. I'll tell you what's happening there.
Okay,
And
thank you.
basically, what I am talking of is purely physical layer based.
Okay.
So when we go into the other layers, then we need to think about the protocols and all other things, which will be the major issues when we talk about the communication happening. So
Okay.
as this is related purely only with the physical layer based,
Mm-hmm.
so I'll tell you how it is happening.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Any other participants having any queries?
Okay, I'll continue, sir.
Yeah, please, ma'am.
Okay. So far we have seen about why we need reliability. Mainly why we are concentrating on reliability is today's necessity is we are the customers, as a customers, we are all interested on the quality and reliability. When I say quality, what is quality? Is quality same as reliability? Terms are different. We always get confused. Quality means reliability. No, quality is different, reliability is different. Reliability gives you that when we define a system product is going to work for certain time, it means that it is working for that particular time. Whereas quality, it defines, so quality, it doesn't have any measurable value. We cannot measure the quality, but in fact we can say quality, we give verbal definitions for quality. Either we say it is very good or it is good, something like that. But we cannot say quality itself is reliability, but reliability is reliability. So even poor products, products with poor quality can also have good reliability. So generally, it's a known thing that we as customers, we assume that if a product is of good quality, it is good, highly reliable. It depends. Reliability depends upon the components or the design factors or the operating conditions which we have considered for designing a system. The reliability is depending on that. So I think you have understood what's the difference between quality and reliability. So now we'll go into the main area, which is the MANET, Mobile Ad Hoc Network. So MANET is a temporary network for a small service, short duration services, or for a particular purpose. Shall I continue? Okay. So MANET, generally it is for a specific purpose or specific application. So it could be emergency applications, either mainly during some law and order time, or any other applications, medical applications, battlefield applications or any applications we take, it's going to be for a short duration temporary application, and it is only for a specific purpose. So how are we going to define MANET? MANET is a self-organizing network. That means it can creates its own structure and topology. And MANET is generally a loose collection of independent mobile nodes. That means nodes are all nodes which are being available in the network are going to be independent independent nodes, and we do not define how many nodes can join or how many nodes can leave the network. Suppose if in an area we have 30 networks or 30 nodes, all the 30 nodes may join or all the 30 nodes may leave. A partial number of nodes can join. So it is not defined that only this many nodes should be there in this particular network. So MANET is a self-organizing network. It's a loose collection of independent mobile nodes, and it's an arbitrary topology, and which can communicate through radio waves. And it could be a single hop network or it could be multi-hop network. Single hop network means when I have a source and destination, when there is a direct connectivity between the source and the destination. So as you look into this graph, this topology, red triangle indicates the source node and star indicates the sink node. So when I have a direct link between the red and blue nodes, it means that it is a single hop connectivity. And if I don't have a direct connectivity, it should go through other nodes, then it is known as multi-hop connectivity. So the other nodes in between are called as the intermediate nodes. So the main constituents of a MANET are, you'll have a source node, sink node, and intermediate node. All these three nodes are going to act as a transceiver. So it's not that intermediate node has to wait for the source node to give some messages and then it has to acknowledge and then go, nothing like that. So all can act as an transceivers. So once it comes into the connectivity of either the source or the sink, automatically connections are going to be established. I'll tell you how the connections are going to be established also in the further coming slides. So finally, to conclude, a MANET is a self-organizing network, which is a loose collection of independent mobile nodes with an arbitrary topology that communicates through radio waves, either in a single hop fashion or in a multi-hop fashion. And next, what are the main features of the mobile ad hoc networks is, first is infrastructureless. That means we do not need a specific infrastructure to deploy this particular MANET. Why I say infrastructure means, for example, if we take the LAN network, we need nodes, they are wired connections, and it's going to be static in one particular place. Infrastructureless, it is going to be highly flexible, no centralized unit, so highly random in nature, and self-creating, because the nodes are moving in nature, they can create its own topology. And as I said previously, they communicate through a wireless media, lack of centralized entity, then highly mobile and flexible, heterogeneous, different types of nodes can get connected. That means, what do I mean by saying heterogeneous means? For example, we are connected today. Some of us would have been connected through laptops, some are connected through mobiles, some are connected through desktops, some are connected through iPads. So each one have your own configurations. Each one have your own memory capacities, hard disk capacities of your devices. So that means each and every device has its own specifications. When we use different devices getting connected, that you call it as the heterogeneous type. So it's a heterogeneous type. The multi-hop routing, as I said, intermediate nodes are going to help in communication taking place between the nodes and exist for a short duration. As I said in the beginning, we develop these networks for a specific purpose and for a specific duration of time. And dynamic topology, because the nodes are moving out, links are forming and getting destroyed, the topology becomes highly dynamic in nature. And next, coming into the challenges, you have many challenges. So you can, I have listed out a few. We have a lot of work happening in routing. And scalability is one, defining the network size based upon the number of nodes which we need. Because as we increase the number of nodes, what happens, the complexity of the networks increases, and thereby the performance, we need to look into the performance of the system. And dynamic topology, as I said, because the mobility, because we have mobility is involved in MANETs, the dynamic topology becomes highly dynamic in nature. As I said earlier, heterogeneity, because we have different specification of devices which we use in the network, we call it as heterogeneity. Protocol issues, mainly responsible for communication to happen. Clustering is a very another important parameter. So in this also a lot of research is going on. So the clustering means we are dividing your network into subgroups, and this that means we are trying to decentralize the activities. So making each and every group responsible for one particular activity to improve the performance of the systems. And next, power management, bandwidth management, all this is related with bandwidth management. With speed and power is going to be the requirement for strength of your nodes or the signals, and lot many things over here. So I'll be concentrating more on reliability, network modeling, how the connectivity is happening. And today's topic is going to be with capacity and without capacity. I'll be dealing into that. And tomorrow will be about propagation, signal propagation, and day after tomorrow we'll be dealing with the mobility. The next, why do we need reliable MANETs? So generally, okay. When I talk of networks, we have two entities. One is the source and one is the destination. Without a source and a destination, we cannot have a communication to take place. And in general, these entities, source and the destination, are prone to failures. The failures can happen in random. So failures can happen either due to natural attacks or due to the errors caused, humanious errors caused. So whatever it is, if there is a failure in the network, then automatically if there is a failure in any of the network components, then automatically the system becomes unreliable. So the failure of these components may be due to several reasons. So when I consider the node, so each node will have its own transmission range. Only to a particular range it can send the signals, or it can cover certain area, coverage area. And then the node positions, how we locate, how we deploy the nodes, then atmospheric effects, obstacles, and each and every node can have a limited time. I can say if I have a mobile, when you purchase a mobile, first interesting thing which we see is what is the lifetime of the mobile. So if I invest something around 15,000 or 20,000 for just for a purpose of having communication, when I invest 20,000, I expect that my mobile should work at least for 10 years. That is what I expect. If it doesn't work, then my investment goes waste. So each and every component that which we design, we say that this is the lifetime of that particular product. Even when we purchase a television, we expect that it works for 5 or 6 years at least, as per the technology which has been used over there. So we need to look into all these parameters. When it doesn't work to the limited, the expected life which we design, then a network is a failure. So all these parameters are directly related to connectivity. So when I say transmission range, if the transmission range of my mobile is 3 miles, within 3 miles, if I have another mobile, it should get connected. That means when I make a call, it should get connected. If it doesn't connect within the 3 miles, then the purpose is not solved over there. So that's what I would like to say. All the parameters which I mentioned above are directly related with the connectivity of the network. And if the connectivity fails, it means that the network is a failure. And what are all the different types of failures that can occur? So one is related with the node and other is related with the same. So when I say node failure, so here I have 4 nodes, B1, B2, B3 and B4. So you see that V1 has a coverage area which I have given in the blue indication, blue circles, and V1, you see V3 is within the coverage area of V1. So V1 and V3 are connected, and likewise V4 is in the coverage area of V3. So V3 and V4 are getting connected. When you look into V2, V2 is not in the coverage area of any of these three nodes, V1, V2 or V4. So since it is away from this, it means that it is isolated. It is not getting connected with V1, V3 or V4. So here coming into the link failure, when you have an obstacle, so you see that the node V1, which is the source, gets isolated with all other nodes. So wherever we have obstacle, it may be in any form. It could be a physical obstacle, or it could be an interference, or it could be a lack of signal strength, whatever it is. All these are going to be a sort of obstacles wherein the node V1 gets isolated from all other nodes. So what could be the reasons for the node failures? So first main reasons for the node failures is when two nodes are not within the vicinity of each other, automatically no connectivity is not going to establish. So here I have given that unavailability of intermediate node or the router due to hardware or software failure. So in the node, either hardware would have failed or software would have failed. When there are such failures, then a node gets isolated, or node moving out of coverage area. When I say mobile nodes, so we use a mobile. So mobile is not moving. As we move, the mobile moves, and hence we move out of the area. So that means the node moving out of coverage area, it gets isolated. And each node will have its own battery limits. The battery may get exhausted. So if it is in a remote area, there may not be a possibility to recharge your batteries. So the lifetime of the battery has exhausted, and hence the nodes can fail. And coming into the link failure, it could be due to node mobility. That is, nodes are moving in and out. So when within vicinity of each other, links will establish. When they are not in the vicinity, links are not going to establish. And because of obstacles also, links can fail. Because of fading, links can fail. And because of excessive interference, links can fail. And next. So next we see what is reliability. Okay, network reliability. So what does it mean when you have constructed a network, or when you have deployed a network? It means that the network has to be available, it has to be secure, it has to be consistent, and it should be trustworthy. So what does it mean available? If I say my network has to be operated for 72 hours, it should be available for the entire 72 hours for a specific application. If I say it is for a medical application, it has to be available for a medical application. It has to be secure. It means that it should, secure in the sense, only the receiver and the transmitter should know what is happening in between them. There should not be any hackers in between. And consistent, it should be able to perform the operation throughout, and trustworthy. Secure and trustworthy are almost equal. So under limited number of failures. So it means that even if I have a network with 25 nodes, out of 25 nodes, if 5 nodes are going to fail, let it fail. All 20 nodes can perform my operation. It's not necessary all the 25 nodes should perform my operation. So that's what I mean to say under limited number of failures. So that with this, I would like to define network reliability as the ability of the network to continue network services in case of component failures. Even if I have link failure, or even if I have a node failure, it means that my system should operate, should give my intended operation which I need. So network reliability means a probability that exists at least one feasible link between two nodes under predefined conditions. So we are defining the predefined conditions. Means if I am using say a military tank, I am using it for a military purpose. So the environmental conditions may be different. So you can have some military application, military weapons, certain terrestrial weapons. I mean, you can have it in some using in the aerial mode and some in the ground levels. So both these have got different environmental conditions. So these environmental conditions, your system should perform. That's what I want to say. Network reliability means that the probability that there exists at least one feasible link. So you have a source and a destination. Either you have a direct path or you have any other path between the source and the link. At least there should be one link in your network which helps you to perform your intended operation. That is, the network is not operational if the desired connection is lost. Okay. Okay. So how are we going to analyze your reliability? So to analyze the reliability, first we need to quantify the ability of the network performance with the impact of failure. So that means we need to identify, as I said in the beginning of the slides, we need to identify the failure and what type of distribution the failure is, the data is following. That we need to identify. So we need to quantify that. If I say that this failure, let me say the first 1 hour I have 5 failures. Maybe after the next 1 hour I may get another 5 failures. So we should be in a position to predict what will be the total number of failures that can be also possible. So main analysis is you need to quantify the ability of the network performance with the impact of the failure. And next is to identify the weakness in the network. Weakness in the sense whether the node's life is good, the links can be established, and the environment where it is going to be used, we should be able to identify whether it's suitable for that particular environment or not. So these are certain weaknesses which we need to analyze. And what are the measures we can do to assess the performance of the networks are going to be 2-terminal reliability, all-terminal reliability, K-terminal reliability, and you have one more which is all operational terminal reliability. So 2-terminal reliability means reliability between 2 nodes. Okay, reliability between 2 nodes. That means reliability between the source and the destination. So I can have the reliability between these 2 nodes. At least 2 nodes should be active to have a network to perform. And when I talk of all terminal reliability, that means if I have n nodes in the network, all the n nodes should communicate with each other. If they don't communicate with each other, it means that your network is not reliable. And K terminal, out of n nodes, I may have K terminal. I may specify, if I have 10 nodes, I may specify 5 nodes must be operational for my system to function. If all the 5 nodes are not going to be operational, then my system is not functioning. Okay. And I also have the case all operational nodes. That means I try to identify what are all nodes functional, and all the functional nodes should communicate with each other. So these are the 4 different measures which can be done to assess the performance of the infrastructure networks. And the same assessment can be also extended for infrastructureless networks. So infrastructureless networks here are MANETs. So now we are going into the case studies. So first case study I am going to consider is going to be reliability of MANET without capacity constraints. So that means I am not going to say what is going to be the load on the links, how much bandwidth requirement or how much bits has to be transferred. I am not going to consider all those things. The first case is what should be the reliability of MANET if I am not considering any capacity constraints. So here I have given a topology which has got 8 nodes. Blue indicates your source node and red indicates your destination node. Okay. So here I have just given a simple topology. So at this particular instant of time, this topology is like that. The next instant, the topology may change. So here you look into this. This topology, I am going to represent it in a matrix form. And this particular matrix, we call it as the connection matrix. So we make use of the adjacent matrix concept, and we develop this connection matrix. So how is it developed? We take the number of rows is equal to 8 because we have 8 nodes, and number of columns is also 8. We have 8 columns over here. So, and you see that your diagonal elements of this matrix is all 0 because self loops are not available here. So 1 is not connected to itself. Likewise, 2 is not connected to itself, or 8 is not connected to itself. Since self loops are not present here, all the diagonal elements are equal to 0. So now 1 is connected with 2. You can look into this. 1 is connected with 2. So here the first row is row 1, and you have column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So column 2 is connected. 1 is connected with 2, so I write it as 1. 1 is not connected with 3, so I write it as 0. 1 is not connected with so 1 is connected with 4, so I write it as 1, and remaining all are 0. So how I am writing it is, so 1 has got its own transmission range. So here I am considering a homogeneous network. So when I say homogeneous network, it means that the specification of all the nodes are same. That means the transmission ranges of all the nodes are same. Okay. So when I say the transmission range, let me assume the transmission range of all the nodes are 2 miles. The distance between the nodes, whichever is going to be less than 2 miles, will get connected, and the distance which is greater than 2 miles will not get connected. So when I look into this figure, 1 and 2, it has satisfied the condition that the distance between 1 and 2 is going to be less than 2 miles. And when I look at 1 and 5, the distance is larger, so it's not connected. So using that particular concept, I have just considered the adjacent matrix, or I can say the connection matrix. So 1 is being connected with 2 and 4. So 2 and 4 is 1, remaining all are 0. And look into 2, 2 is connected only with 1, and it's not connected with the rest of the nodes. So 1 and remaining all are 0. And likewise, the same way, we have established it, and when we look at 8, 8 is connected with 6, 4, 5, and 7. So look into this, we have 8 is connected with 4, 5, 6, and 7. So once we know the connection matrix, looking into the connection matrix, we can see that the node 1 is not connected with 8, but still it is connected to 8 through intermediate nodes. So we can look into that. We can see that. So when I consider node 1, you can see it is connected with 2, and it's also connected with 4. So when I check with 2, 2 is not connected with 8. So there is no possibility of node 1 getting connected with 8 through node 2. So only possibility for node 1 to getting connected to 8 is either with 4. So you need to check in. 1 is connected with 4, and come to 4. 4 is connected with 5 and 6 and 8. So 4 is connected with 8. So I can say that there is a path being established between 1, 4 and 8. In case if this link has failed, the link between 4 and 8 has failed, then we have another path which has been established, which can be established between 1, 4, 5 and 8. Or you can have 1, 4, 6 and 8. Or you can have 1, 4, 5, 7, 8. So you have n number of paths wherein you can have a connectivity between the source and the destination. So when I have a network, I am trying to give it a matrix representation. And from this matrix representation, we will be going in for calculations of the reliabilities. So what are the assumptions being made for this particular objective? So as said earlier, I am considering the network to be a homogeneous network which is operational. Initially, when you purchase a new TV, the day one, the performance will be very good. But as years goes on, it so happens that the performance deteriorates. For example, now we have the LED TVs. So we know the LED TVs, how it has been designed or constructed. With the performance, there are chances that the LEDs may fall off from their located places. So you can also see that you get white spots in your TV. It indicates that there is a dislocation of the LEDs, right? So that means that still you're having the performance of the TV, your picture quality is good, but only thing that you may have white spot indications at certain places. But as we are satisfied with the performance of the picture quality, we do not go for the replacement of the TV. So initially, whenever you purchase a new component, the performance is going to be very good, and as the time deteriorates, your performance also deteriorates. Okay, so network is homogeneous and operational at the start of the mission time. The node movement follows random waypoint mobility model. So when I deal with the mobility models, I'll give you more detail about what is random waypoint mobility model with zero pause time, uniform distributed nodes, and moving in certain direction. So this point 2, I'll be explaining more detail in the third session. Then time to failure of the nodes. As I said in the beginning of the thing, we need to observe the distribution of the failures. So time to failures of the nodes are observed to follow Weibull distribution. When I say Weibull distribution, there are two unknown parameters. One is the scale parameter theta and another is the shape parameter beta. So based upon these parameters, we can understand the distribution pattern of the failure of the nodes. And failure of the nodes are statistically independent. And once a node fails, it remains failed for the remaining period of the time, because these networks are going to be mostly operated in remote areas. So in remote areas, when we go, there may be a chances for repairing of the nodes, or there may not be a chance for repairing of the nodes. So assuming that there may not be a chance for repairing of the nodes, we consider the case that nodes fail. It remains failed for the entire duration of the time. Links are bidirectional without any constraint on their load carrying capacity. Then that means I'm not considering any data rate over here. This much should be the data rate for communication to take place. I'm not considering that. Then the creation and destruction of the link depends upon the distance Dij between the nodes and the transmission range. Okay. So what I mean to say is, I have two nodes, node 1 and node 2. I calculate the distance between the two nodes, and I know the transmission range of the nodes. If my transmission range is 2 miles, and if the distance between these two nodes is 3 miles, then I say that because the distance is 3 miles, it doesn't get connected. So that means the link formation is a function of distance and as well as the transmission range. So here we'll consider an example. As a case study, let us assume a network has 18 nodes, a transmission range of 3 miles, coverage area of 64 square miles, and nodes are moving with a speed of 3 miles per hour to 6 miles per hour. That means the maximum limit is 6 and minimum is 3 miles. And this is the node failure parameters. We are considering the scale parameter 1000 and the shape parameter 1.5. Mission time, that means my system or network should be operating for 72 hours. And as this is going to be simulated, number of iterations taken is 10,000, and the mobility model is going to be RWPM model. And with this, when we try to run this, we observe that first initially we consider the two-terminal reliability. Two-terminal reliability, as I said, it should be the reliability between at least two nodes should be operational for a system to perform its operation. So at 5,000 runs, we got something around 0.6946, and as we increased from 5,000 to 15,000, there has been a stability in the value. So you can see that at 10,000 we got 0.6944. So we fixed our simulations to 10,000 because the varying much doesn't give any variation. So we have fixed it at 10,000. Okay, and we have considered 3 different cases wherein changing of coverage area, changing of the transmission range, and changing of your network size, what is going to be the effect on the reliability. So when you look into the first plot, here we have taken the 3 cases. First, black curve indicates the 2-terminal reliability, and red curve indicates all terminal reliability, AOTR, all operational terminal reliability, and the bottom triangle one indicates the all terminal reliability. So here, as you look into the graphs, when I said 2-terminal reliability, at least 2 nodes should be operational. So just consider if the node reliability is 0.9, so 2 nodes should be operational. It means that 0.9 into 0.9 should be 0.81. So that's what you see, that when your coverage area is going to be 100, you get the highest reliability, something around 0.69 has been got over here. And with the increase in coverage area at 400, you see that it has almost reduced to 0.1 something. Okay, so 2-terminal reliability, it has got the highest value, which is 0.69. Why? Because only 2 nodes is sufficient for the network to perform. When I say 2 nodes, product of both the nodes is equal to 0.9. And here, of course, for a 2 nodes to be connected, you need a link. Okay, so link will also have certain reliability. But in this particular case, as I am considering no capacity constraints, it means my link is binary. Connected means my link reliability is 1. Not connected means link reliability is equal to 0. So when connected, so product of these reliabilities, node 1 into node 2 into the link reliability. Since link reliability is equal to 1, I'll have product of node 1 and only product of node 2. So if my node reliability is 0.9, since 2 nodes, it's going to be 0.81. So that is the reason why we have 2TR, the highest value. And coming into the all terminal reliability, suppose if I have a node of 10, if I have a network of 10 nodes, when I say all operational, maybe 5 nodes are operational. Okay, let me assume 5 nodes operational. So that means 5 times I need to multiply 0.9. Then automatically you can understand that the value got for AOTR is going to be lesser than that of 2TR. And similarly, when I go into all terminal means all 10 nodes should be operational. So when I multiply 0.9 10 times, I may get lesser value, still lesser value than AOTR. So looking into the plot system shows that the 2-terminal reliability network is always larger than AOTR and as well as ATR. And another thing what we can observe here is when your coverage area is small, you have higher reliability, and when your coverage area is large, you have less reliability. Why is it happening? When your coverage area is small, the nodes are densely populated. Whereas when the coverage area is large, the nodes are sparsely populated. So that means the connectivity is very less in larger coverage area, and connectivity is very good in small coverage area. So that's what in smaller coverage area we have good reliability, whereas in large coverage area the reliability has reduced. And coming into the next plot, you have time versus reliability. As I said, at the beginning of the mission time, the reliability is always good. Any system, even if you consider human life, during your childhood, you do not have, you are very healthy, you are very active. But as you grow with age, your activeness falls down. Same is happening with the system. So initially, your system performance is very good, so the reliability is very high. And as it deteriorates or as the time increases, your reliability falls down. And likewise, you can see that here I have given NCA is equal to 64 square miles, and the pink line indicates NCA is 400 square miles. So at 64 square miles, you see the reliability is very good. I said here the network is densely populated, and hence the reliability is good. And pink line, you see the reliability is very small. That means the network is sparsely populated and less connected. So this is in terms of coverage area. And next in terms of network size. So you can look into the network size. So as the number of nodes increases. So in this particular plot, here we have fixed the coverage area to 64 miles. Okay, and initially between 0 to 20, you can see that your reliability is less, and as the number of nodes are increasing, you can see that for 2TR the reliability is maximum. Okay, and the beauty, you can see that it never exceeds 0.81. When I say 2T1, if I take my maximum reliability is 0.9, it doesn't exceed 0.81. So that means beyond uh, 40 nodes, you can see that the reliability is very good. And likewise, for all operational all operational terminal reliability also, you can see that the value has reduced than the 2TR. And likewise, when you come into all terminal reliability, from all terminal reliability, you can come into a conclusion that if I have 22 nodes, it can satisfy my operation which is needed. And likewise, coming into the transmission range, so when your nodes are going to be in within 3 miles, I see that I don't have a good performance, and to have a better performance, I need to have a design with more than 4 miles. Our optimum design is going to be at 5 miles. So 5 miles is sufficient. I need not go in for 6, 7, and 8 because I attain the best reliability at 5 miles. So this is about your capacitor, without capacity constraints. So in this case, the maximum reliability, what was observed was the maximum reliability of network with imperfect nodes. That means nodes can fail, and links will never exceed the probable product of reliabilities of the set K designated nodes. If I have here 2 nodes, then product of 2 nodes is 0.81. If I have 3 nodes, product is 0.729. So if I have that many K nodes, then based on that, it will never exceed that value. And then the link is also purely binary in nature. That means if link exists, it's 0, and if link doesn't exist, it's going to be if link exists, it's going to be 1, and if link doesn't exist, it's going to be 0. So we define this criteria comparing the distance and the transmission range. Okay. With this, I'll go for the answering the questions. Any questions? Many people I see have raised your hands.
Ma'am, I will give a chance for the participants to unmute, ma'am, please.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yes, no, participants can unmute themselves. If you have any questions, you please unmute yourself and you can ask the questions. Yourself and you can ask the questions.
Hello, madam. Hello. Hello, madam.
Oh, ma'am, one second. Please.
Yeah, madam, tell me, madam.
Madam, initially you said the physical network will depends on reliability and bandwidth. So whatever the bandwidth, ma'am,
bandwidth, that's what in this particular case, I am not consider the bandwidth. That's what I'm saying. My next case, I'll be considering the bandwidth, and I'll tell you how are we defining that.
Okay, ma'am, one more question. As you said, among the 25 nodes, if the 5 nodes are failed, even the system will work with good reliability.
Yes.
So what is the limit of the failure, madam, for to work the system reliability good?
The limit depends upon the designer how you want. See, if now before starting of the session, we had 90 people connected.
Yes, ma'am.
It was working. Now we have almost nearly around 200 connected. It is working, right?
Yeah.
So limit depends upon the designer how we want to have it. Okay. So if you are happy that if the reliability of the network is 0.5, if you are happy with that, then it's okay, fine. If you want the reliability to be something more than 8 to 1, 0.8 to 1, so it basically depends upon the designer how you want it.
Okay. Ma'am,
Okay.
one more question. As a researcher, ma'am, will the simulation software will depends on the domain of the EC or CSC? So if you are in EC domain, so we have to use only the EC softwares. Is that any any restrictions
Nothing
are
like
there?
that, madam. Nothing like that. See, you basically, we have used the MATLAB software
Yeah, for each.
to do the simulations.
Yeah.
Okay. So some people they would be convenient for using network simulators. Some
Yes, ma'am.
people they may be good in
Off-net,
programming using any languages. So
yeah,
it depends upon which domain you need, and whichever software or whatever model you want to design and take, yours should give a better performance than the existing one.
yeah. It may be any software.
It can be anything, whichever, but only thing you should need to see that whether it is suitable for that particular application, whether it is able to take up the I mean, when I talked about the features of the MANET, it should be compatible with taking up the arbitrary changes in the topologies or arbitrary changes in the network. It
Yes,
should be
ma'am.
suitable for that. Only
Okay.
you need to look into the compatibility of the suitability and the suitability before doing with any taking any choice of network. It's not related. You should because it is easy. We can't say MANET is easy. It is also
Yeah.
related to CSC.
CSC also.
So you can also choose your softwares according to that.
Okay. So which will be the more better for this MANETs, ma'am? Which software will be the better?
That's not specific like that, anything like that. When we look into the literature, there had been
Okay.
people who had used OpNets. There are people who
Yeah,
had
ma'am.
used network
Yes.
simulators. Some
Yes.
people have used Simulinks. Some people
Yes,
have
ma'am.
used MATLAB. So that's not specific something. Only thing that it should not be time consuming, right, for getting your results. So there are certain things which you need to look into. That's not specific thing. Only this particular software is suitable for this.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. You have given really very nice session, ma'am. Very informative session.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Any other participants?
Hello, madam.
Yes, madam.
Hello.
Yeah.
Madam, are you consider that link reliability in terms of the link reliability? Any failures on the link?
Now, in this case, failure of the link, I'm telling you, this particular case which I have explained now. So, link reliability, I'm calling it as a binary model. When I say binary model, okay, binary means either it should take a value 0 or it should take a value 1. So, when the value is 0, I say that link is failing. When the value is 1, link is existing. That is what I have considered here. Are you able
That means you are assuming that the link, what are the causes of the link failure, you are not considered.
No, in this particular case, I am not considered. Next case, I'll be telling you about that.
Okay, madam, in one more thing, last madam asked that generally we are using that MANETs. The simulators is like NS2, GlomoSim, like that. So in that by using the MATLAB, we are not able to show that mobility, or we are able to show the mobility of the nodes.
Yeah, there are
by using MATLAB.
There are simulators where you can define the mobility of the nodes also.
By using MATLAB?
No, MATLAB, I'll show you the slides next, next which I'll be dealing with. I'll be showing you how the mobility has taken place, because my third session is completely on mobility, right? I have generated the movement of the nodes.
Okay, okay, madam. Thank you.
We can do that with
Thank
the
you.
Okay.
Okay, madam. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other participants? Ma'am, in the feedback form, someone has posted questions, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, are ad hoc wireless networks safe? Are ad hoc wireless networks
Yeah, I
safe?
already told it is secure.
Secure, yes, ma'am.
It is secure.
Yes, ma'am. And one more question, ma'am, here. Question is mathematical modeling of magnets, ma'am.
Planets.
Yes, ma'am. They're requesting to explain the concept of mathematical modeling of magnets.
Okay. The slide is missing. Okay. Shall I do that tomorrow, sir?
Ah, it's okay, ma'am. It's
That,
okay, ma'am.
that slide is missing over here. I'll check that.
Okay.
Madam, one more thing. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, what is the difference between the MANETs and wireless sensor networks, ma'am? So is there any specific difference between there, or both are same?
Yeah, of course, there is a difference. Wireless sensor network basically depends upon your sensors, the sensors which you are going to use, and the data which is going to be collected by the sensors, and based on that you are going to do. So
In whereas in MANET?
MANET is basically it's the based on the nodes which you use. For example, if I take military application, we are going to make use of wireless radios.
Yes.
Right?
Ma'am.
So RF radios, I can say. So that is different, and this is different.
Okay. So where we use the MANETs, there can we use the wireless sensor network, ma'am? Is it possible?
I didn't get you.
Yeah, where we use the MANET network, so there is a possible to use the wireless sensor network, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any advantage more if you use the sensor network?
The only thing when we want to gather data, more information, when I say medical application, when you whatever it is, there we need to deployment of various sensors.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, what are the principal parameters that are challenging body area?
Madam, your voice is giving disturbance, ma'am. Ma'am, first, ma'am, there your network is you have some problem with the network, ma'am. Padmavati, ma'am, I guess the participant having some network problem.
Yes, sir.
So, any other participants having questions? So, I guess.
Ma'am,
Yes.
what are the challenging parameters that we need to consider in body area networks, ma'am?
What are the?
Body.
Your question is not audible, madam. What are the
Body area network?
Wide area network, right?
Body area networks. Body, BAN. BAN.
I'm not getting you.
Body area networks. Sir.
Body area networks, ma'am. She's asking about the body area networks.
Body area networks?
Challenging parameters, ma'am. The parameters that we need to be cautious to get the results.
Challenging factors. So she's asking about the challenging factors, ma'am. Hello. Hello. Okay, I hope the participant is not clear, ma'am. Here. I hope there are no more questions here. Or anyone is there to ask?
Tomorrow shall I continue?
Ma'am, it's your wish, ma'am. It's up to you, ma'am.
So today I have one more part. That and tomorrow's session I will continue to tomorrow.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, sir. We'll start the session at 10 o'clock tomorrow.
Tomorrow 10 o'clock. Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, just explain what are topics which you are going to discuss tomorrow, ma'am, and we can start the session.
Tomorrow, as one of the participants has asked about the mathematical modeling, I'll start with the mathematical modeling of that particular today's session which has happened. And tomorrow I'll be considering the capacity constraint, because in the first part which I have taken, I have not dealt with capacity. So I'll be taking the capacity constraint, I'll complete that. And then I'll be dealing about the propagation models. If I have a propagation model, what will be the effect of the propagation model on the reliability concept? This is what I'll be dealing with. So when I say propagation model, I'll be showing two different models. So based on the time constraint, I'll try to complete both the models. If not, I'll take one of the propagation model for the next day.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay, ma'am.
tomorrow I'll be dealing with the mathematical model of today, what I have done, and I'll be talking on capacity constraints, the effect of capacity on the reliability concepts, and propagation model I'll be dealing with.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, real session is good, ma'am. All the participants have actively participated here and they are receiving the concept which you are delivering here, ma'am. Really, it is nice, ma'am. And tomorrow we can start the session by 10 o'clock, ma'am.